Identity is the story you tell yourself about yourself. It is the story you tell the world about yourself, and it is your action in the world while you're executing that story. My name is Stephen Kimani, and this is the Personal Development Challenge. Amazing. So the other day, I was having a talk on identity, and we were talking about identity and micro habits, the way identity reflects in your daily life, in your daily routine. And while I was talking about the story you tell yourself about yourself, one of my partners told me that he's going to try out something. So his name is Jeremiah, and Jeremiah has this problem. When he showers, his skin is a bit itchy. And this is a problem that hails from his home. So his dad has the same problem, and his sister. So we had just taken it like it's more from the family line. But my brother told me, you know what, I'm going to try and tell myself a different story and see if this is going to change. At that point, and I was the one teaching about identity, I was a bit skeptical, and I was like, would this work for issues and things that are not like pure mindset? There are things that we can even trace them from the family. And surprisingly, a week later, he called me and told me, bro, you know what, when I shower, I'm no longer itchy. And we met today. And the same thing, he told me the same thing. He is no longer itchy when he showers. Why? Because every morning before he goes to the bathroom or to the shower, he tells himself that story. I'm not the type of person that is itchy after a shower. Now, I know you don't understand exactly where that goes, but let me break it down for you. So let's start here. Identity, your own identity, is the story you tell yourself every time. That is how you identify yourself. You see, the things you tell yourself, the way you maneuver the world, the way you see it, the way you perceive it, is derived from the narrative that runs in your head. So think about it this way. Two people walk into a bar, and they find a lot of people seated there. If one thinks that they are sociable, it's easier for them to interact with people. But if one thinks that they are not socially accrued, then it is difficult for them to interact with other people. Now, for those two people, both of them can create good relationships and good rapport in that particular bar. But what affects the two of them is the story that each one of them tells themselves. So it's important to check the stories that you tell yourself about yourself. That is where you start. When you want to think about your identity, you don't start by defining boundaries, by defining your qualities and everything. It's just about your story. You have to sit well with your story, because your story has to align with the way you feel about yourself and the way you move around the world. Because if they are in congruence, or if they don't agree, then you enter something that is called the identity crisis, where you're feeling like this, but the way you're showing it off is different. The story you're telling yourself in your head is not the same story that is reflecting in the world. So it's important for you to check the stories that you tell yourself. Your stories can empower you, or they can disenfranchise you. Your stories can make you go for it, or they can make you tap out. Your stories are the things that can make you wake up in the morning excited and wanting to face the day. Or your story can be the same thing that keeps you in bed when you have to do other things. You see, the whole story of depression and mental health, well, it's medical to some in a bigger aspect, but also think about it this way. When a person is depressed, what they are telling themselves is that I am worthless, I am not capable, I can't go out, the world out there is against me, all this weight of the world, I can't carry it. But if that mind change, if it shifts just a little bit, and he wakes up in the morning and thinks differently, and he's like, you know what, today I'm not going to conquer so many things, I'm not going to build a whole building, I'm just going to take one step and take one brick and build it. And just so the morning they tell themselves, you know what, when I wake up in the morning, the only thing I'm going to do, I'm going to make sure that I take a shower. And if I take a shower, that is a good day for me. And mark you, that will be a good day for them. And then they tell themselves, you know, yesterday I took a shower, today I want to take a shower and go out and take a walk, a 5-minute, 10 minutes walk. And then that is a successful day for them. Now, when you look at it from outside to the world, you're like, this guy hasn't done much. He has just taken a shower and a walk. It's not that big. But if they see it like that, they see it as very small steps that don't count. But if they see it from their story perspective and the things that they tell themselves about themselves, then that is a win. And that is how you slide out of depression. when you want to be practical about it? Well, there is a medical aspect of it. You should go and see a doctor if you want these things addressed. So that is the first part of identity, the story you tell yourself about yourself. The second part is the story you tell the world about yourself. When you're moving out in the world, do you discount yourself? When you meet people and they compliment you, are you like, no, it's not a big deal. You don't know how to take compliments. Now, the story you're telling the world at that time is that, yeah, you are putting me at a pedestal that I'm not worth it. I know it's good to be modest and not to be bragging and everything, but you have to go out into the world with a story that is concrete, with a story that is definite, with a story that you want to reflect out in the world. When I move out as a speaker and I want to talk to the people, I can't go out doubting myself. I can't go out questioning myself. I have to go out as a person who knows what they are talking about, because if I question myself, then they will question me. If I move out as a speaker who doesn't know what they are saying, then definitely they perceive me as a person who doesn't know what they're saying. So when I move out in the world, I have to move out with a story in my head that is propelling what I am going to push out in the world. It is important that you check this particular story. And the third thing, it is your actions in the world. Now, it is one thing to say that you're a good speaker. It is another thing to put in the work to become a good speaker. Now, for the whole identity scenario to tie together, you tell yourself a good story, you tell yourself a powerful story, you tell yourself a story that you want to reflect, then you go out and tell the world that particular story. You go out and show them and tell them that, you know what, I am the biggest speaker that you're going to experience, okay? And then the actions tie it together. Because now when you put in the work to become the speaker that you want, you're telling the world that you are, then that ties the whole identity scenario together, and there is no misalignment. Because if there is misalignment between the story and the action, then you're in that particular place that we've talked about identity crisis. You go into an identity crisis because what you're saying and what you're doing are two different things. So at one point you want to tell the story of being a parent, and then your actions don't reflect the parent that you're telling us about, then that is an identity crisis. So you have to check that you align everything that you were talking about. So the story you tell yourself, the story you tell the world, and your actions in that particular world. Now, why do I choose to define identity from a story perspective? Because we understand stories. Because most of the time we spend in here, in our heads, and everything we're telling ourselves in our head are stories, different stories. You see, in all of the world, every religion is based on a book that is canonical to them, and these books are telling stories. So stories have a very important place in our society. These stories are fundamental. They carry things that are deeper than what is just written on paper. Stories carry the fundamentals of life. They carry the foundations. They carry each and everything that is made up of life. If for a Christian like me, if you look at the Bible, well, everyone can question whatever it questions, but trust me, if you just read through the stories, they tell you how to live your life. So stories are important because they carry the lessons and they are intertwined within the real life experiences. So it's important that you check your stories. Stories are not small things. They are important, and that is why they have been carried forward for years and years and years, and that is how we have been able to survive as human beings and carry forward the knowledge that is innate in ourselves. So stories are important. So keep checking them, keep updating them, and make sure that your stories are empowering you. They align with you from yourself to the story you tell the world and into your particular action. So the other day I was speaking about identity and micro habits, and I gave a story that is powerful. So one, I was in campus and we were seated with friends and we were just having a good time. And then I had a blood stain on my teeth. And then one friend noted it and told me, hey, you're bleeding. And I didn't know what was happening, so I went and checked myself and I realized my gums were bleeding. Now, that affected me because one, I am a person who is proud of themselves, that they are clean. I keep myself clean and I take care of myself. But at this one point, the story that I was telling myself about myself and the story that I was telling the world, like I'm a clean person, was not aligning with what was happening, because now I have bleeding gums, right? And you can't convince me that a person who has bleeding gums is a person who has good hygiene. So this troubled me for a bit, and I had to go to a dentist, and I went to a dentist and I took care of it. and the dentist told me what to do. So brush this and do this and do this, pay me these types of visits. But from that day onwards, I was very keen on my brushing routine. I never missed one. Why? Because now brushing the teeth was more important. It was not just a matter of just cleaning my teeth, it was reflecting on my identity. Because I couldn't go to a place and brush my teeth and allow people to see that I have bleeding gums, because that tells a different story to them, and that doesn't align, okay? So it's important and to check your identity, because it informs the small things that you do, small things like you brushing your teeth. Just imagine, how long does brushing your teeth take you from your day? At most 5-10 minutes, right? But those 5-10 minutes can affect your confidence, can affect your self-esteem, and hence affect your productivity. And if your productivity is affected, then you get into a loop of thinking that you're not worth it. When you show up in front of people, you cannot laugh, you cannot smile, because you're not proud of your teeth, because you're not proud of your hygiene in the mouth, okay? So it's important that you check that particular story, because it is these small things that when they accrue and they add on each other, they reflect in a very huge way. Now, there is that particular loop that I've talked about. When you fix your story, then the loop is self-propagating from one point to another. Now, assume you tell yourself that you are a good writer. So that's a good story that you're telling yourself, that you are actually a writer. Then you go out and tell the world that you are a writer. And then the world tells you, okay, if you are a writer, then write as something. Then you put in the work to write. And then you bring it to the world, and the world is like, yeah, this is good writing. I like the writing that you do. That particular reaffirmation that comes from the world feeds back into your story of that I am a good writer. And then that loop feeds over and over, and it goes improving yourself and your self-perception and the way you present yourself into the world. So it's important that you tell yourself that story, but it has to start from yourself. You have to think about those things. You have to stand in front of that mirror and ask yourself, what is my story? What do I want me to know? What is the first thing that I want to tell myself? You have to figure that out. And these things can change over time, okay? They can change over scenarios. They can change over everything that you approach. But if everything that you do, you ask yourself the first question, who am I in this scenario? What is my story in this particular scenario? Get that story right. Then when you move out into the world, move out with your story and let the world see you for your story. If they're ever going to judge, let them judge from the real story rather than from their own extrapolations. Let them judge and let them reward you for the story that you are. The story that you can defend, the story that you know, the story that you believe in. It's important that you figure out that particular story that represents you perfectly into the world. If you don't figure that out, it doesn't matter what else you do, because every other thing will not align with the person that you know yourself to be. So go out there, be you, do you, be happy, and remember that identity is a story you tell yourself about yourself. It is the story you tell the world about yourself, and it is your actions in that particular world.